2, and here's Modi. And here we are, and those of you watching, we are really focusing on our posture because our guest came in here stunning. If you get a chance, just even look for the picture. Victoria S. Cook, a partner at Frankfurt Kurnit, a big law firm, and you're head of their entertainment division.
Not the head of
Not
the
the head.
division.
Oh, so you gotta be careful. I'm sorry.
No.
But I mean, your resume reads as though you are. It's a super impressive resume. Let's just do that for 2 seconds and go into like more of who she is. You're a member of the entertainment group of Frankfurt Kurnit and focusing on motion pictures and television work, representing award-winning filmmakers, writers, directors, actors, television producers, film financiers, and television networks. She is immersed in both the independent and the Hollywood world, and her clients often work in aspects of entertainment and business. Okay. Of the entertainment. I can't read a resume to save my life.
I like that, though.
You like that, though?
We did it. I actually talk like that all the time.
Because you came in
but
here.
there was no thumb.
There's no thumb, but the ones listening can't see the thumb, and the ones that can on YouTube should definitely see the thumb. You came in here, you said you're a fan of Yoli. That's why you're doing the interview?
Huge fan of Yoli. My whole family is a big fan of Yoli.
Oh, really? Where do they live?
And The Crown.
Where do they live?
In New York City.
Okay. Hold on.
Oh, and my mom also is a fan of Yoli.
Talk to the microphone. Good.
Okay.
Yeah, they did the posture in. Now, you came in, and you and Periel know each other from an interview you did for Tablet Magazine.
Yeah.
And you came in right away, and wow, she said, you look so amazing. You said you lost 40 pounds during the pandemic.
40 pounds. First I gained 10, and then I lost 40, so it's like 30 from before the pandemic.
Right. It was a choice people had to make during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Which way am I leaning into just eating everything I can make, or am I going to work out like I have a problem? No, luckily we did. In our house, we cooked one meal and then had little snack, and then our trainer, which is going to be a guest on this.
Yeah, for sure.
Our trainer, it was able to get keys to a gym, and we worked out 3 times a week with our trainer.
That's awesome.
Like what's it called? Speakeasy workouts. Speakeasy workouts. So Pilates, you're saying, has changed your life?
Yeah, Pilates is. I always was into yoga, which is really important for me. I think psychologically, it's been like a very useful way to calm my mind. But I never really like changed my body, mainly because I was eating all the time. And then once. In the summer I live in Montauk, and that used to be a yoga capital, but all the yoga studios closed because of COVID, and the only thing they had available was Pilates. And then in this little office I rent there was actually private Pilates in the back of it. So I became obsessed.
Obsessed.
Yes. And then when I moved back home, I live in Central Harlem, I Googled Harlem Pilates, and a place came up called Harlem Pilates. Shout out for Harlem Pilates. And real Pilates from the summer. It was only 2 blocks away from me. So I've been going really a lot.
So you made a conscious decision. I'm doing the exercise thing during the pandemic, not the eating.
Well, at first I was doing the eating and cooking. I started baking challah. That was the first big thing that I started doing to find the perfect challah recipe. I've discovered it.
You have?
Adina Sussman, olive oil and honey recipe.
Okay.
Noted.
Sababa cookbook. Shout out for Adina Sussman.
She's been shouting out for more.
I'm beeping everybody out unless they want to.
No, unless they want to send their money. We're going to offer them if they want to.
Sorry.
Otherwise, what are you kidding me?
Brand and integration. Sorry. So anyway, I was baking a lot. My husband was making tons of cocktails. I was eating ice cream. I was just like, I thought it was going to be not so long.
Right.
So
we all did. We all did.
Whatever. In a couple of weeks, I'll be able to go. Yeah, and then I actually, when Ari was very ill, I started actually realizing that like life is short and I could be healthier.
So let's discuss that. So you and I share a friendship with the Gold family.
Yeah.
That's Elon Gold, the second funniest Jewish comedian after me. Now that Jackie Mason's passed on, it's me and then him. And we will have him on one point to have a nice big fight here. Mm-hmm. And his brother Ari, who passed away during recently February 14th, and we sat with we went to the shiva, and we had a we had fun. We
I
made
love
photo.
Yeshiva.
We made fun. We had fun
Best
with his
TV
parents
show I
and
saw all of COVID.
and your connection with that family. So we have that in common. And it was very his passing away. Ari Gold was how do you describe him? A pop singer in the gay world. Am I saying that right? Help me.
I think he was a singer-songwriter who was super influenced by a certain kind of pop music that tends to be for, girls to sing. And he insisted on singing it without changing his pronouns. And he did that long before anyone was willing to do that. And he also did it wearing a giant chai, and his yeshiva background always popped through. And both sides of his life wanted him to kind of make him less queer, less frum, not that he was frum, but less Jewy, and he was unwilling to ever hide any part of himself. And it was an inspiration I met him when he was 16 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you dated his brother.
I lived with his older brother, which was a scandal in the modern Orthodox community. I moved in the day after I graduated
It's
college.
three brothers, very, very talented. Very, very talented. There's Stephen Gold, who's a big musical writer for all kinds of things and won awards for it. Elon, a comedian,
Less
and Ari was a
talented.
singer. Yeah.
Elon.
The comedian should be Stephen. I think Stephen's funnier than all three of them.
On purpose funny or as object of ridicule?
On he's actually a very Norm Macdonald humor. He's very just like out there, but
he can be very funny.
He can be
also
very, very funny. He could be very annoying
I love
too.
him.
Yes.
That's your ex-boyfriend, yes?
Yeah, we were
Okay.
together 1991 to 1992. We met at the Nevele Hotel in kosher for Passover.
Of course
and
you
we
did.
broke
The Nevele
up.
Hotel, and you can let that
no,
flow.
no, I was
They're gonna
gonna
let that
stop, I
flow. It's a
swear.
hotel in the Catskills in Nevele, and it's 11 spelled backwards. And
they
it's
had 11 kids.
East Fallsburg.
and those of you who remember the ads at the Nevele, da-na-na-na-na-na, at the Nevele, I performed
I'm
there
sure
also.
you performed there.
Yes.
So his family was there. His mother, Lynn Gold, was teaching Israeli dancing, and Stephen was doing
Yes.
close-up magic.
I
And
remember
Elon
all
was
this.
not yet. Elon was just graduating MTA, or was just starting. It was just in college, like early days, I think. I'm not sure if he was performing yet there. But Stephen did close-up magic, and I fell for that somehow.
Oh God!
Wow.
No! Wow!
But I fell madly in love with Stephen, and we're still very close. I mean, we became closer in the last couple of years because of his brother's illness. But I love Stephen. I have very warm and loving
I'm more
feelings
worried
towards
about
him,
that
but-
you love magic. That's what. That's more upsetting than anything.
Yeah, I mean, not. Well, David Blaine is really hot. I don't know. I find things that can actually make me wonder interesting.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. We were in Shabbat dinner in Elon's house one time. I lived in LA for 3 years, and every Friday night we had dinner in Elon's house. And whoever the guests were, the guests could be anybody from Bob Saget to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And one time there was this magician that was dating a friend of Sasha's, Elon's wife, and Elon's wife, Sasha, has a friend, and this magician was dating her. And he not only is a magician, but he supplies magicians with their drek, with the coin that has
I used to go
this.
shopping with that with Steve.
I'm gonna put it right out there. I'm not a fan of magicians. They annoy me. It's just you have to work for the audience. I think you have to work for the audience's thing, not just do a little trick and go ta-da, and they start clapping. Anyway, so he was there, and Elon and I were like, oh, I just want to put this challah knife right through his throat. And the kids, Elon's kids, couldn't get enough. And I said to Elon, I lost all respect for all your kids right now. But
see, you would have lost. I mean, I guess you're losing respect for me. But it was very much close-up magic, which I guess is what was happening at the Shabbat table.
What's close-up magic?
They
Yeah.
do things with you,
Like the
guess a
card.
number or whatever, and it's very personal.
pick a card or something.
I fall for that.
And I was
all the time.
I
love it.
completely fell for
Yeah,
it.
it's for sure.
And he was creative and interesting, and he wrote music. And I was in a secular college, but I was in a very, very modern Orthodox.
Yeah, I want to
world
talk about
socially.
that.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So
Your
he
story
asked
is a
me
little-
and he said, and I was like, well, one of the things that's so fascinating about you is that you were not raised Orthodox. You left the house.
Yeah, kind of.
May I?
Yes, please.
May I for the
My mom was religious. My father wasn't.
Okay.
And when they met.
But what really kills me from your story is this. Usually you hear from like before World War II, we had to send the kids away. We had to send the kids away so that the Nazis wouldn't get them. But you hid yourself amongst Holocaust survivors.
I did that.
Isn't that a little? Isn't that, it sounds like a movie. You know, it starts off, you see the Jews being put on trains, and all of a sudden, and then later on, cut to 45 years later, or whatever years later, and she goes, I'm going to hide amongst the survivors.
Well, I actually just saw the man that I lived with right before Yom Kippur, or right before Sukkot. I went to visit him for the first time. I had not seen him since 1987. He's Kanai Nahara, 99 years old. He turned this year.
Wow.
Nobody knows what you just said means.
Kanai Nahara means without the evil eye, so he should live another 99 years long. Now she's
Chamsa,
that's her
chamsa.
job here. Her job that's her job, yeah.
So he's incredible, and he actually found me relatively recently because I started this like modern Orthodox protest movement kind of thing, which he had read about, and he knew me as Vicky Cook, and they said Victoria Cook, and he was like, "This sounds like her."
Can you say what that is?
It's called Torah Trumps Hate, and I started it the day after the election in 2016 because I couldn't find people like me who had gone to yeshiva who were unhappy about the results of that election. And then I found thousands and thousands of people like me, most of whom are still from Dati, Orthodox, in all different ways. I'm the least religious person maybe in the group. I always say that like it was makar of me. It brought me back to be more religious. So did COVID, by the way.
Did it?
Yeah, because I was like, well, what do you have to do besides like set your table for Shabbat? That's like all I cared about. I like started a side hustle for like selling Judaica. That's a whole other thing. I want to be like have the store in the in the shul in the 70s. Like I want that store.
With the little store in the shul.
Yeah.
Sponsored by the Sisterhood.
It's a sisterhood
Congregation
thing.
Beth Israel. I'm Sheila Berkowitz.
Look at this.
President of the Sisterhood.
My friend, one of my best friends, this woman Marie Therese Gurgis, who's not Jewish. She's
what are you
actually
showing
Egyptian, Irish American. Got me this recently as a chai, and on the back it says sisterhood.
Oh,
and she didn't know the reference of sisterhood.
Did you see this connection?
She just
now?
meant it was sisterhood, right? And I was like, but it's so great because like I always think of myself as like the sisterhood president. And she's like, what's the sisterhood? And I had explained to her what a sisterhood in a shul was.
In like the most Americanized synagogues, not the shtibels,
Right.
not the small
Conservative
synagogues.
movement.
Conservative
What's a
movement.
shtibel?
Oh, come on.
No, I have no idea what that is.
A shtibel
like
is a
mainly
small
men.
synagogue. It's a small little, it's like in a house.
Nobody
walk up
knows what
steps.
that is.
What?
A
Of
shtibel,
course they
no,
do.
she goes for the extra. A shtibel is like a synagogue that's in somebody's house, kind of. It's only
There's a
men.
ton of them in New York City.
It's like maybe
There's
10,
like a women's
50
section
men the
with
most,
a hole in
and
the
that's
floor
it.
that you can listen
But
as you make the cholent for the lunch for the kiddush.
I'm sorry. What? Could you please repeat that?
You went too
I've been in a
fast for her.
shtibel before, a couple of them where there is. You say there's no women's
There's
section. There's
usually-
kind of a women's section, but basically it's often like upstairs and they have a hole in the floor so you can hear it. Not a hole in the sheet. A hole in the
No,
floor.
don't set her
It's
off.
true.
Do me a favor.
God.
Just let's get through this in a nice way. You have such
Anyway,
a beautiful
I still go to
things to
Orthodox
talk
shul,
about.
so
Yes,
I'm
no,
not-
but
A hole in the floor?
even in
someone's
Orthodox
apartment,
shuls,
you know,
even
like-
in Orthodox shuls and conservative especially, they make the announcements at the end, and there's always like the flowers today were sponsored by the Sisterhood, and the kiddush is
Yes.
sponsored by the Goldstein family in honor of their daughter finally finding a husband, even though she has a hunchback. All of that. They make those announcements, and it's so like when we came to America, what the hell is sisterhood? But that was the
yes, I feel like it was such a beautiful present for my friend because she meant it as the sister. We're sisters, but it has this whole other layer of what I'm actually trying to do with this like side hustle I have called Hoti Dor.
So you have this thing called Torah Trumps Hate, and how did you? I want you to say it again. Say it.
Say Torah Trumps hate.
It's kind of like I think you put Torah Trump like Trump is the Torah. I don't know. I would say Torah trumps hate. I'm just that's just me.
Yeah.
I could be ridiculous. I want to tell you when thinking back to the days when he was elected, the division in synagogues was absolutely insane. I perform a lot in synagogues. I remember one place in Pennsylvania. I did a synagogue, and it was a Chabad, but a big Chabad synagogue. And Chabad means it's usually it means that the rabbi's religious and everybody else is not as religious, but they go to a religious synagogue because they love the rabbi. And they made the announcement, and I was the first event that they had after the election, and they did this as a healing comedy night, and politics should not be spoken, and politics should not be spoken, and don't discuss anything. People were not talking to each other. People left the community. It was really a crazy time, and I'll tell you something. On top of that crazy, I left my bag with my suit behind the car in my parking lot. So I left there in a sweatpants. I did the whole show. Everybody's in suits. I'm in a sweatsuit.
I love that.
Sweatpants and a black T-shirt. I did the show in
Prada sweatpants.
And I'm usually always in a suit with a tie, always. But it was an insane time, and it still is.
That was in a show in which many people are secular in their daily lives, and from communities, it was not divided. There was maybe a very small. I mean, it depends where. Like Riverdale, Teaneck, there was places that were more progressive, but there was what felt like, at least online, like a uniform pressure that if you care about Torah values, like the irony of this to me is hard for me to get out of my mouth even, then you should be voting for this disgusting charlatan because it's like King Cyrus or whatever. It's just like be a shtadlan and just get what you can get because he's good for Israel and good for like prayer in public schools, if that's something we care about. But we spent a lot of time with the evangelicals, so they wore off on us.
It's gone now, that division in the Orthodox world. I think not from Trump also, but I always say, I had a joke that Trump was able to finally unite Nazis and Orthodox Jews. There was one thing he was able to. Too much. Was that too much of a line for you? But
it's just so true.
It was. And now, so when I go in front of an Orthodox audience, and I will back in the day, I just left it alone. You could not do Trump.
No.
And if I did, it was like jokes about like how there's Jews in the White House now, like and Ivanka's making the blessing on the water with the cup that has two handles on it. Do you know what I'm talking about or no? No. Negelwasser.
No, I'm not the only one who doesn't know what you're talking about either. When you
wake up in the morning and before you have a make a blessing on bread on Shabbat, you do
on
this.
Shabbat before you go eat.
You've done it at a Seder, right?
Don't you have to
don't you wash your hands with a special cup with a special prayer before you eat bread?
No, I don't wash
it's
my
a thing.
hands
So
with
Friday
a special cup.
Friday night you make a blessing on the wine, then you go wash your hands with a special cup, and then you eat the bread. So my joke was that there's Jews in the White House, not just the rabbis that come to light the menorah once a year, but now the daughter of the president goes and does the blessing on the wine, and everybody knows it's time to eat bread, except for Melania. So that was the big joke I had.
The only image I have is Lady Macbeth trying to wash her hands with the blood. It's not going to get clear.
It's such a
no matter how much Negelwasser.
Right. No, okay. It's such a par of joke. It's an easy joke that everybody can be happy with.
Yes.
Those are the types of jokes I had to do. And today, it moved on to the vaccine. I'm in front of an Orthodox Jewish audience, and I swear to you, down the middle, half anti-vax, half pro-vax. But let's keep to your to Trump.
I can't.
To total Trump's hate.
It's all similar. It's all related. That's the big issue we deal with a lot in my community. My activist community now is how to deal with the anti-vax, anti-science, anti-democracy, pro-autocracy stuff that's going on in our communities and what that really means for the future of, the human race, but also the Jewish people.
But I think that I don't know how I somehow slid into this group under the radar because I have you're definitely not the least religious person there, but I somehow am in this. And she really, I mean, it's sort of incredible to see, like, she is so revered. She somehow manages to make people, maybe it is in part because you have this attorney background, to really be so fair and logical and all of those things, but people are losing their minds and feeling so taken out of like the community that they live in, and that
they're abused also and berated on a regular basis. But my
and
husband always says, like, can't you act at home like how you pretend to be on social media? Like, you're so loving and nice and like trying to make sure there's always like shalom bayit, whatever, like peace in the house. There, here, like at home, you're so unwilling.
You're like, yeah, I don't have any patience for the house.
I was like, whatever. But I felt, especially until we got through the election, and I'm very, very worried about what's coming for, was like, achdut, like unity within this community and in general within the Jewish people, because I guess I was indoctrinated a lot in yeshiva education that. Disunity leads to destruction. Like, we were always taught that the second destruction of the temple and the exile was because of baseless hatred. And it feels that way to me. And I feel like there's so much anti-Semitism on the right and so much anti-Semitism on the left. And we're caught in this terrible grip. And that all we do is fight with each other. And like, you're on this team and I'm on this team. It's become like we are a very weird, we become the tribes that we used to be, or, you know,
So backtrack though. So you moved into the Modi
the religion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so my family was pretty. We were very Jewish. My mother grew up Orthodox. My father grew up. His mom owned a giant ham company, but they were very Jewish.
That's amazing.
And
they sound very Jewish.
And they sent me to day school.
With the sandwich.
Very kosher house, two like separate kitchens practically, a Passover kitchen.
Wait, what about the ham?
That was my father's family, not him. You know, he became a doctor. He was an abortion provider, actually, and we had to deal with all of that all the time. Like, he was an OB/GYN, but we had to deal with crazy protesters all the time, and he had to wear a bulletproof vest, and my brother and I were, like, stalked and stuff. It was a crazy experience. But in that period, I went to a more religious school at a certain point because it was, like, it made sense for my family at the time. And in that school, the principal of that school had gone to the brother school of the school I went to, and my mother's brothers went to that school. I had a connection to the yeshiva I went to. A girl I grew up with was going to go there, and I suddenly had all these teachers who covered their hair, and like I went to their houses for Shabbat, and I got more. We always had Shabbat dinner, and we didn't really go shopping or things like that. I mean, Falcon Crest and Dallas were on in the house, wow. But I was becoming more religious at the time. But I was really young. I was 12. And I moved into this family's house as a boarder, and they were all survivors. And then I moved into another family's house because then they moved away. And I lived with this one family for 3 years. And that man, Kenai Nahara, just turned 99 in July, and I got to see him. And he's so
you
cool.
On your own became more religious.
Yes, I on my own did a lot of weird things in my life that I just decided to do and kind of like impose my will on other people in ways that maybe in retrospect I wasn't as sensitive to how that would affect my brother and my parents and my everything. I just like wanted what I wanted and I got.
Were you one of those people who like you went and you learned that you can't do that and this in the kitchen, and you tried to get the family to not do that?
More about Shabbat because we were very, very strict about kashrut
Okay.
I mean, my mother still to this day knows more than I do about like when you stick something in a potted plant to make it.
Can
or
we
like
talk? Wait, what?
No, please. I'd rather. She's such an amazing guest.
I don't even know.
Potted
I don't even know
plants.
the rules.
Don't do that stuff.
But like my mother knows what you do to be able to cook on a 3-day yontiv. Like I don't know any of that. I don't know any of that stuff.
Okay.
But my mother was like knew that stuff from growing up in an Orthodox house.
It's really funny. I'm telling you, when we always say this, it's not the chosen people, it's the choosing people. In their house, they chose their machbid, the thing that they're focused on is going to be kosher. Right?
Yes.
Shabbat is on its own, but we're going to be kosher. There's families who don't keep kosher, don't keep Shabbat, but when Passover comes, they go crazy for 8 days and only eat kosher for Passover food. That's their mishugas. That's their craziness.
We became Shomer Shabbos already before I left for school because like we were all. My mother grew up Shomer Shabbos. She missed it. It was, and we never really drove on Shabbat. We didn't.
Okay,
so we were like, we were like modern. Like edgy on the other edge of it. And I thought if you were really from and you had like real Shabbos and a real community and took Shabbos walks and all those things, you had a happy life because all those people seemed really happy. It turns out that was not true.
Not, no.
But I thought that was like a formula to like my version of Brady Bunch I grew up watching tons of TV. I always wanted to live in a place where people just came to your house. I didn't live like that because we were the only Jews in our community also.
Nobody wanted to come to your house.
Yes, but it was always like, it was we didn't live in a community where I went to school. I always drove far to get taken to school. So I thought if I lived in an Orthodox community, I would have my version of the, Brandenburg bunch or whatever.
You thought,
people come over for Shabbos lunch and Shabbos walks and Shabbos naps and blah, 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 and it's like everyone's together and it's really, and there was truth to that. Like I did feel like I was in a community. I care so much about community.
Well, it's interesting that you've created this community.
You've created a community.
Yeah. No, and I feel like I am now, I started my own NCSY. Like NCSY is the National Congregation of Synagogue Youth, which was a thing for people mainly in junior high, early high school, to in the late 80s and 80s and 90s to get into more religious things. It had a huge scandal.
What was it?
Yeah.
Girls were raped.
What? Are we going to gloss
You're
over?
really going to go on this now.
It's true,
I was so looking forward to. She won awards and she helped make movies, and now we're in this, and that's going to set Perry off on another level.
Who was raped?
There was a lot of statutory rape because there was a leader of it, Baruch Lanner. It's totally adjudicated.
God.
I can say his name. And he took advantage of a lot of young women. He was like a charismatic leader, I guess. It's very common in youth groups in general. It's not just Jewish. In all youth groups, there's often this inappropriate. I mean, he was young relatively too, right? They just found it.
But they've also
in
done
USY.
amazing stuff too. They've also the groups that weren't raped did very well. No.
Sure. I think all those youth groups have upsides. And
yes, people come in there and destroy it. It's an individual. It's not a group.
That I completely disagree with. There's systemic problems in all groups that they're allowed to hide, and when people report things and they're told that the person should be quiet and let the person. That happens way too often in every religion, in every community. It's not just in the Jewish community, but the problem. There's always bad apples, but they only spoil the bunch when the bunch lets themselves get spoiled instead of kicking out the apple. I'm not saying that everyone, you know what I mean? I had an amazing experience in NCSY. It's what I literally model everything I do, whether it's my community at work, whether it's Torah Trumps Hate, whether it's the feeling of wanting my clients and the people I work with to kind of all be part of something together. It's all based a lot on actually the Shabbaton and
minus the rape.
Minus the rape. Although there was lots of hooking up with boys though. That was a big part of the.
Did you enjoy that?
I mean, I was a little young and it wasn't my thing as much. I wanted it to be, right? There was always a boy you had a crush on, and it was a big part of social life because I also went to all-girls school. So NCSY was one of the few times.
So anybody Orthodox listening to this now is like, okay, this is why we send our kids, boys and girls, to different ones, just from this little.
Yeah, but it's also why they do it also, right?
So the thing here is, the focus is unity, which is what, it's not just the Jewish religion, is the world is, it's unity. The biggest prayer in, Judaism is the Shema. Right.
Yes, I'm wearing many versions of it.
Right. She has
more.
her whole Haftorah written on her. She has a necklaces and she has the whole.
Wait. There's more in the back. Let me see if I can find.
There's jewelry she's wearing right now. You should know the Judaica jewelry she's wearing. First, it's beautiful.
There.
Look
See,
at
more
that.
Shema.
There's the Shema Israel. And Shema Israel, what does it say? Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Not that there's one God, but that God itself is one. It's oneness. So me, you, the producer, everybody is one. We're all one. It's hard. You pass by a guy who's laying on the street homeless, you and him are the same person. It's hard to put that together. So the ones that hate Trump and love Trump, we're still one. The one that anti-vax, pro-vax, we're still one people. And it's just hard to connect to that and respect each other.
But we have a history of having terrible divisions, not just the Sinat Chinam, the baselit hatred that led to the exile. We also had Shabtai Tzvi, right? We have had historically as a Jewish people major times forced on us, inquisitions and forced conversion and genocide. I mean, there's still only 14 million of us in the world, but we also have huge people leaving the community to follow false gods. The Shabtai Tzvi was a cult leader, basically. I'm not sure of the century. I think it's the 15th century, but I'm not sure. Who ultimately converted to Islam And everyone converted and followed him because they thought he was the Messiah. And then when he turned out, and it was huge. It was everywhere in the North African and Middle Eastern world. It even spread somewhat to Eastern Europe, but it was Yemen. It was everywhere. And he was like a huge scholar and a huge, incredible leader. And they really believed that he was the Messiah. And when he turned out not to be into this crazy thing, this conversion, all these people followed him. He was so crazy at the end that he had his issues where you were supposed to have sex on top of a Sefer Torah.
It was out there.
God.
It was
but
out
we
there,
bury that history,
right?
Because we always, which I think is such a mistake. That's why I'm saying it on this podcast. We have to grapple with the fact that we have these things in our history so that we don't repeat them.
Absolutely, and focus on what unifies us, like Shabbat, like certain mitzvot and certain doing things and eating things and the things, and focus on the things that unify us, not the things that don't unify us. I personally don't have the energy to deal with Israeli politics. My prayers.
Very involved.
You are, I know.
Well, I just became so excited about this group called the Israeli Policy Forum, which is amazing. I'm actually doing something with it tomorrow and listening today. It's an incredible group that's just believes in a two-state solution because they feel like it's the only way to have a safe, democratic, Jewish Israel. And in order to do that, it's hyper-focused on things that could lead to it not happening. And it's extremely interesting. And I was very lucky. A person who's a really big macher, an agency, invited me to come to these meetings. And I started going, and I became obsessed with it. And they've now started having somewhat of an inroads into the modern Orthodox community. They did something with SAR this summer that I was really excited about.
What's SAR?
It's a modern Orthodox yeshiva day school and high school in Riverdale.
What's Big Macher?
A big deal person. The person is a very big deal and a brilliant man. One of the founders of the William Morris Endeavor agent, like the current form of it.
You are an entertainment lawyer.
Yeah,
and you've been a producer. You were a producer. You
agent.
Produced a documentary on Al Goldstein.
Yeah,
which is fascinating.
Which is amazing, amazing. They do that. So now, obviously, you have your connections in. This is beyond social media. This is movies, TV, media. Are you using that to? You have another documentary coming out? Do you have another show coming out?
I don't produce anything, but I work with incredible people who use their power in the media to amplify stories and voices that are underheard and underserved a lot of times. I do have a huge documentary practice, but I also work with people who make super mainstream commercial things. Okay. I like both as a consumer. And it's fun to work on all areas, but I do have a specific other kind of community of the doc people who make pretty important political
documentaries are the best thing. It's really all I watch.
It's hard. They're addictive, right?
It's so addictive, stories. And it could be about anything. It could be about a spoon. If it's done well, done well, you're in for the long haul. 3 hours even. And
an audio doc. I mean, I think the podcast documentary world is really incredible. Like what it means to listen to a story is a whole new way to process learning.
Leo showed me a few different documentaries that they're reading it. It's they're not just having they're reading it. Yes, they're reading the actual, letting you know the information, just like spewing it into your head. Okay, what's the most fun project you're working on right now?
That I can talk about.
That you can talk about.
That's hard because most things while I'm working on them, I can't talk about them.
Okay.
But
the most fun project you've worked on.
Oh wow! Ever fun? Like fun
that you enjoyed? That like you said, I'm doing the right thing.
I mean, I've worked on a lot of meaningful political documentaries in the last 4 years that I thought were really important. Like lots of them. I don't even want to choose among them, but most meaningful. I'm not quite sure.
Well, on top of all of these jobs and side jobs and other side jobs, you've started a Judaica company. Is that right?
Well, we haven't launched our products yet, but with my sister-in-law, my best friend, speaking of sisterhood, my sister-in-law, Emmy Goldenbaum, cook. And
shout out.
My best friend, Stephanie Pastor, who I met when I was still in high school, but finally met in real life, in Yerushalayim, actually in Jerusalem. We started something called Hot Hidor. And it's right now an Instagram blog thing that we write, which is really about kind of elevating the everyday with Hidor, which means to beautify. It's Hidor Mitzvah is a commandment to like make certain rituals even nicer. Like it actually is very connected to the holiday we just celebrated, Sukkot.
Hidor Mitzvah.
Hidor, yeah, it's Hod is the shoresh, is the root, and it's actually a Kabbalistic concept, which means splendor and humility at the same time. Wow. And Hod is Hod, like in a Haute Couture. And so we are my sister.
Haute Couture.
I got it. Okay, I thought it was in Hebrew, but it's Haute.
Yeah, it's Haute Hidor. So part of it is Hebrew.
Got it.
And my sister-in-law is a graphic designer and a fabric designer, and Stephanie's just like the most incredible artist in general. And so we have collaborated, and hopefully this coming year we're launching like challah covers.
We were just talking about.
We just had that.
Covers.
Yeah, people send me all that kind of stuff. Some woman who makes beautiful Judaica, Esther. Her name is Esther. Esther_artist. Esther_artist is sending me. She has this beautiful Judaica she makes. She's a Chilean Jew from the Jewish community of Chile, and she sent me all of her stuff, and her Judaica is beautiful, but I'm not a big fan of putting up Judaica so much, but she has other beautiful things. Can
you send me?
I'll forward you her.
I would love to see.
Yeah,
her
but
stuff.
she's sending me. I love pictures of the beach and ocean. It just relaxes me. So she's sending me paintings. I'm sorry, not pictures, paintings. She's a beautiful artist, and it's like
I would love to meet her.
Yeah,
we're really interested in the global Jewish community and Galut in general, because I think that we have in the current political climate in America a myth that Israel is just filled with white people and that Jews are only a particular type of whiteness in America, and it erases the lives of Jews of color in America, but it also erases the lives of international identities of Jews who've grown up in Swana,
your
Middle
mission
East and
is
North Africa.
Your mission is so intense.
As a
person, her mission is she's in a million things. My mission, make people laugh.
That's a good mission.
Make people laugh. Happens to be I'm very good with the Jewish community, and then the non-Jews see that I'm so connected to that, so they start to laugh too. But
right, if you're authentically yourself, I think that's how you actually can cross borders and talk across difference. But I think that the Jewish community is so heterodox, not just by how we practice, but literally where we're from and where we've been for thousands of years, and what it means to be a Yemenite Jew, and what it means to be, I went to Morocco once, and it was a remarkable experience to me to see how much they're the first outside of ancient Judea community of the first monotheistic religion were the Jews that took over the Berber community there. But then in 1492, when there was the exile and because of the Inquisition, Spanish, Portuguese Jews came to Morocco. It was close. And they were like, we don't think you're Jewish. And they basically imposed upon them Sephardic Judaism, right? Which is not what the Berber Jews, they were actually at a much closer to like ancient temple type of rituals and whatever. And
the Berbers used to be Jewish?
No, and the fact that she has, it's more, I'm looking at her, she's speaking so eloquently and so amazing. The fact that you have the bandwidth to when the 1490 it takes everything I have to send my taxes out quarterly. It takes everything I have to. Okay, but we do have to wrap up. And
okay, I'm sorry, talking
usually,
too much about...
usually when we ask a guest, what do you have to plug? They say, just my website, bye, thank you. I have a feeling are going to be plugging for about a half hour right now. Tell us slowly where to find you, to reach out to you, if anybody wants to know about the Moroccan Jews from 1412. and tell us everything else you're doing and the best way to reach you.
Just in general, I'm always... Pretty much, it's remarkable how much I'm always at work, although that's not been as in person recently. So that's through my the company website,
which is Frankfurt Kurnit.
Yeah, Klein and Sells is the full name of the firm.
Okay, nobody's going to remember that. Before we go
you can just Google me. It comes up as
just
the first
look up
name.
Victoria Cook lawyer. You'll
Victoria
find her.
Cook. You'll see a stunning woman. Just hit it.
Wait, you have to ask her a question.
Who's your rabbi?
That's a really interesting question because I've never had a rabbi.
We're now 15 minutes into this.
I've never had a rabbi. Really,
you're spiritual. If you have a spiritual question, who would you go to? If you had a spiritual
question or a spiritual question?
Both. What's the difference? It's a big difference.
So halacha question, I think I would actually
halacha is law of a certain law.
Where I really wanted it to be an orthodox but fair answer, I would go to this man, Eliyahu Teitz. His father was the dean of my high school, and his grandfather was like the Rav of that area in New Jersey, Pinchas Teitz, and he's someone who I like trust his ethics, his politics in every way, and he's his halachic answer. If I needed a halachic answer, I feel like it would be him. If it were like
spiritual question,
me.
Okay, you have a gut rabbi.
Many different kinds of people, but I don't feel like. I mean, I think there's a guy named David Ingber who I think is an incredible rabbi who's like grew up mono-Orthodox, who runs this like incredible movement shul called Romamu. It's I used to go there more regularly.
I did an event for them.
They're incredible. When my son was facing bar mitzvah, I wanted him to have a more traditional shul experience, and we became more religious. I've become much more religious, actually, kind of. And so it's not a fit for me on a daily basis for like shul, but I really respect him spiritually in a very, very deep way. And then, I don't know.
If that doesn't work out.
That's what it is. If that
doesn't work out, you can always put your ear to the hole.
Right, exactly. In the shtibel. There's this guy, Joe Schwartz, who's like about Israel. I don't know. A lot of things, and they're all men, and that kind of bums me out because like I don't know really. Oh, I know. Can I just answer one? My friend from college, Chaviva Ner David, who is the first Orthodox woman who has ever actually ordained, but she wasn't really allowed to be a rabbi, and she runs a really interesting mikvah in the north of Israel for everyone, including people who've gone through transition and stuff. It's amazing.
Wow.
And in her kibbutz Kalchanaton, and she wrote her first novel recently. I'm going to plug her, which is called Hope Valley, which is about her. It's a novel about living in the north of Israel and meeting a Palestinian and realizing that your house was on their land and what it meant to form a new friendship and a new beginning. And it's beautiful.
Okay. I am Modi at ModiLive.com, Modi_live on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for doing this, Victoria Cook.
Honored.
Your energy is amazing.
Modi, Yoli, Nir, you're big. You can't imagine how big fans we are in my house.
And Yoli was all about what everybody has in common.
Yes.
That was my big goal.
So many people who could not understand any of the references were laughing so hard when you called the Queen, the Rebbe, and that like the Crown reviews spoke to the whole world somehow.
These are characters I do on Instagram. If you're not sure what we're talking about, thank you all very much for being a part of. And here's Modi.